Good evening to those who are with us already. I see we have a number of panelists as well as attendees. We are currently live and do have folks attending. Thank you for being with us. Please hang in there tight with us. We have about 15 more minutes as we get our closed captioner and our Spanish interpreters all set up. So thanks for being here.
Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Ari. Thanks for being here. We are live. We do have attendees already and we are recording. So I just wanted you to know.
Thank you. I got a new computer today, so I wanted to make sure it worked.
Okay, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
How about that?
Now I can see you.
Okay, you're working. Great. Thanks.
And again, thank you to anyone who is already here in attendance this evening. We will begin at 5:30. We're just getting everyone on site as well as our closed captioner and our Spanish interpreters. So please bear with us as we get moving here today. It will be just a few minutes. Thanks. Again, good evening to everyone who's here. We will begin about 5:30 for our panelists. I want to let you know that we are live and we are recording and we do already have attendees in place. We will begin at 5:30, so shortly, but we're getting our closed captioners and our Spanish interpreters ready. So please bear with us. Thanks. Good evening to everyone who is already in attendance. I appreciate it. All of our panelists, just so you know, we are live and we are recording. We will begin about 5:30. We're just trying to get all set up with our speakers this evening, as well as our closed captioners and our Spanish interpreters. So hang tight. We'll begin right about 5:30. Thank you. Thank you again to everyone who is in attendance this evening. We are just getting everything all set up for you. We'll begin about 5:30. Panelists, we are live. I do see that our closed captioner is here. If you could unmute and I will get you all assigned. Ms. Castaño, I see you. Just give me 1 second. I'm setting up our closed captioner right now.
Hello, thank you.
Is our closed captioner there?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So I have assigned you to caption and I see it going. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hello, Ms. Castaño. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. We are live, but I will tell the entire world right now, I've missed you. I'm going to go ahead and assign you to be our Spanish interpreter this evening, unless you have any questions before I do so.
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate it. Oh, and if you can let folks know that the Spanish version of our PowerPoint slide is at venturausd.org. They can
Okay.
go there, and I am going to show a slide just momentarily as soon as we get you set up to show
Okay.
where to go for Spanish translation. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Carroll, you're muted.
Why, yes, I am. Thank you. Ms. Castaño, I can still hear you, so I don't see that we've.
No, I haven't clicked on yet.
Oh, go ahead and click on.
Okay.
Thank you to everyone who has been here so far. We are getting ourselves all set up with our Spanish translation as well as our closed captioning. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. Just give us a few moments as we get settled in here and start the presentation. We'll let you know what we're going over. We'll probably answer all of your questions during the session. Again, thank you to everyone who is in attendance so far. We will begin at 5:30. Panelists, please note that we are recording and we already do have attendees, and we'll be back with you in just a moment. Good evening again. We are just getting the final touches put on everything. Thank you to everyone who is in attendance so far this evening. Thank you to our panelists who are online as well. We will be recording this so that we can show it at a later date in case people would like to go back. Please bear with us just for a couple more minutes as we take care of some housekeeping items, including our closed captioning, as well as our Spanish translation. So we'll be starting momentarily. Thank you. Again, thank you to everyone who is participating so far this evening. We'll begin shortly. We're just doing a few housekeeping things. Panelists, please note we are live and recording. We'll be starting momentarily. Thank you. Again, thank you for being with us tonight. We're going to give it just another minute or two to allow everyone to log on and make sure that they're in place. We do have closed captioning as well as Spanish interpretation. You will be able to ask questions throughout the presentation through Q&A, but I ask that you just hold for that just a little bit until we get our presentation started. Very likely we'll be answering your questions. So just one more minute, please, and we will get started. So again, thank you to everyone for being with us this evening. This is our Ventura Unified School District for the City of Ventura, not the county, but the City of Ventura's school district. We want to talk to you a little bit this evening about what fall 2021 will look like, and our team has been hard at work getting prepared for you. As I stated earlier, we do have Spanish interpretation. We've got our closed captioning below. You can ask questions and answers throughout our presentation this evening, and we will go through and answer those. However, I have a feeling we'll be answering a lot of them for you throughout the presentation. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Dr. Rice, our superintendent, to do some introductions, and then I will share my screen and we can talk agenda when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. I appreciate the introduction. Good evening, everybody. Bienvenidos a todos. Estoy muy feliz estar aquí anoche. I'm very happy to be here with you all this evening. It's super exciting to be able to meet and talk with you all about coming back to in-person instruction this coming year. For those of you that have attended our webinars in the past, we plan on sharing the same kinds of information with you, so it won't be a surprise. For those of you who haven't attended our webinars, just hang in there. We'll likely get to your questions as soon as possible. We do have with us our amazing school board, who's extremely positive and supportive of our kids and our families and staff. And I'm going to take a minute to introduce them, have them say hello very briefly. We have our board president, Velma Lomax.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. We are very excited about school. I can't believe it's already going to be starting in a month, but we're here to answer your questions and be here for your children on all levels and for you as well, support for parents and families throughout the year.
And we also have, thank you, Velma. We also have our board vice president, Matt Almaraz. Matt.
Good evening, everyone. So excited to hear the reopening plans and to share them with you. Thank you for trusting in VUSD for your child's education. Just thank you for being here tonight.
And we also have our three other board members with us, starting with Sabrina Rodriguez. Sabrina.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
And we have trustee Amy Callahan.
Likewise, good evening, and thank you for being here with us tonight.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Jerry Dannenberg. Jerry.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate your interest in your child's education and hope we'll be able to answer as many questions as possible for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, board, for being here. We certainly appreciate all of your support, and your presence here, I know, speaks volumes to our community. I also want to take a minute before I share a few comments for all of us to thank Marianne Kiro. She's put in months and months of work coordinating from all the different departments and getting this webinar set up. So Marianne, thank you so much for all your efforts. I want to start by saying that what's really exciting is that VUSD plans not only to return to in-person instruction, but also we're anticipating returning to in-person activities, co-curriculars, extracurriculars such as music and the arts, athletics, to a more normal scenario. And we'll share some of that with you this evening. We've got robotics, clubs, organizations, speech, you name it. We've got it, and we're super excited to return to those programs for our kids and for our families. We know how much our kids love those programs and how much they missed it when they weren't able to participate last year. We've got a new K-8 school at Lemon Grove that we're super excited about. And I know if you've been considering enrolling in a K-8, Lemon Grove is the place to be, and you should reach out to any of us here and we can get you steered in the right direction. It's going to be a great program. We also have a brand new student-run organic farm called Sa Elias Ranch that we're super excited about. It's already earned its organic certification. The construction's already started, and we're super excited about involving all of our schools at all grade levels in that program. Our LCAP lays out robust plans for supporting our students and our families, not just academically, but socially and emotionally. And we're thrilled to be a one-to-one district. That one of the silver linings of this past year is that we're able to make strategic and robust investments in technology so that all of our kids have the technology that they need. And we're currently in the process of applying for big dollars to support broadband, increased broadband access to our families and to our community. So very excited about all the great things that are happening right now and that will continue to happen. And yet I know that we have a very long agenda. So rather than talk to you all evening about the good things that I'm excited about, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Castro and Marianne, who are going to talk to you a little bit about the agenda and some of the logistics with this evening, and let you know that our staff, including our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Dr. Antonio Castro, is here with us, as is our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Mr. Brett Taylor. Unfortunately, Dr. Rebecca Chandler, our Assistant Sup of Business, wasn't able to be here this evening, but we're all here to do our best to not only share information, but also answer questions throughout the evening. So Marianne, I'll turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. So as you can see, we do have a full agenda this evening. These are the topics that we will be going over, and all of our experts in these fields will be discussing with you where we believe we are headed. As you know, things change every day, and so as always, we will communicate with you if we do have any changes to this. But Dr. Castro, I'm going to turn it over to you and Dr. Bayless to begin with in-person learning.
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you tonight. Just as Dr. Rice already got started on, we have the opportunity and some welcome news to share with so many of you that our plans are to return to our traditional in-person instruction as it was pre-COVID. I know this is welcome to so many of our families. As Dr. Rice stated, our structures, our schedules, and related activities are all planned to be as pre-COVID currently. But we'll also be sharing about some news for some of our students who cannot return to in-person instruction. So I wanted to make sure that we're speaking to all families and all students. So as you see on the slide, all of our students have been already enrolled in their current schools. That's happened automatically. The intention, as you'll see in some pictures that are coming up, Marianne did such a nice job of trying to illustrate what it will feel like when they're back in school. So you'll see some of these pictures, but they'll be back in school in a classroom. We'll be talking about masking in a second or a couple of minutes, because I know that that's going to be there'll be several questions about that. And in terms of these structures, just as pre-COVID, but not having to do because of COVID, some schools change schedules between school years. And so you'll note that you have Cabrillo, Pacific, Poinsettia, and Atlas have slightly changed bell schedules, but that's not due to COVID. That's just due to the work that's been done on the campuses for instruction. And those bell schedules could be located on the school website, on the district website. And then we'll be also talking about transportation. How does that look for our students going forward? And we can go on to the next slide, Marianne. Thank you. And as I stated just a minute ago, we have our open programs. There have been several traditional programs that have been existing for quite some time. And those programs are Homestead for our elementary and middle schools, Flex for middle school and high school specifically, El Camino High School of Ventura College. These are programs that have already been in existence. However, at the bottom of the slide, what we're going to talk about is some unique guidance that we've just received from the state in terms of what independent study will look like for our independent study programs. You'll note the note in the center of the slide that talks about what about distance learning? What's happened to distance learning? There are no provisions for distance learning in this upcoming school year. So you have our traditional programs, which are face-to-face in person, and then you have the independent study options, and those are our two options going forward. So as you'll note at the bottom of the slide, because of AB 130, we have some guidance related to what does independent study look like? And what you'll see is that there are a couple of definitions there. There are for grades K through 3, there's a requirement that there be daily synchronous instruction. For grades 4 through 8, you have both live instruction and weekly synchronous, live interaction and weekly synchronous instruction required. But as it has been in the past for high school, we have essentially synchronous instructional opportunities. But as I stated before, these parameters are given to us for the 21-22 school year only. And with that, Hector Guerrero, our Director of Educational Options and Principal at El Camino High School, was unable to join us this evening, but he was so thoughtful to provide us some content. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to Dr. Greg Bayless.
And before we get started, Dr. Castro, can you please explain what synchronous and asynchronous are just for our viewers?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So synchronous will be things that are happening in real time. So as you are logged in, we're talking with students and teachers in real time, versus asynchronous will be a delay. There'll be instruction that's given at a particular time, and the students will be able to work on their own time to be able to complete that instruction. Thank you, Marianne.
All right, thank you, Dr. Castro. My name is Greg Bayless. I'm the Director for Secondary Curriculum Instruction. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really pleased to walk you through our independent study options, and I'll continue on to talk to you about a variety of other things, including athletics and ASB activities, dances, all the great things that we're excited to bring back to our secondary school. So first, we have an exceptionally high quality high school independent study option, and it's El Camino at Ventura College. It's the technical term is this middle college where our students have priority registration for Ventura College courses while taking high school independent study courses. This is a well-established program with a fantastic track record, a fantastic group of teachers, and as Dr. Castro said, an excellent principal, Hector Guerrero. And some of the unique features about this independent study program, again, is that it's on the Ventura College campus. They get priority registration access to Ventura College courses, which does not happen for students at our other comprehensive high schools when they try to register for Ventura College courses. They build 2 transcripts, a Ventura College transcript along the way, and many of our students at the end of their 4 years at El Camino also graduate with a diploma and an AA or 2-year degree to go on into the workforce or to transfer to college. But again, it's fully accredited, existing program that offers and fulfills all the requirements of Assembly Bill 130, which is guiding our development of independent study programs. So there's room at El Camino. I'll invite Marianne to go to the next slide. The best way to get more information and to potentially register is to reach out to Tara Schramm, the outstanding office manager there at El Camino, and her email is there. And you can also get more information about El Camino High School at elcaminohigh@venturacollege.org. There's some information sessions coming up, and those will be hosted by Hector Guerrero, the principal. So we invite you to take note of those 2 things. But this is our primary high quality independent study program that Ventura Unified is pleased to offer. We'll go to the next slide, Maria. We have also had our program that we call Flex, which is an independent study program for about a year and a half. And the Flex program actually is being expanded into the middle schools next year for the first time. So we're really pleased to now be able to offer 2 options to our high school students for independent study, El Camino at Ventura College and Flex. And we also now are adding an additional independent study program for the middle school. So we're going to expand Flex to the middle school, and they also have 2 options with Homestead, and I'll address those a little bit later. But Flex is designed to be an independent study program where students have to take at least 4 courses online, and they can take up to 2 courses at their home boundary site. So the way it works for our high school students over the past year and a half, we have many students that are on Flex for all 6 of their courses. We have many students that are on 5 courses of Flex online Ingenuity, and then they're taking 1 class, and they can take up to 2 classes. So if there are 2 classes a student wants to stay in, they can continue to do that at their boundary school. And these Flex students are eligible to continue participating in extracurriculars, athletics. So it's a great fit for many, many students. And again, we're able to expand this to the middle school option, or the middle school level. A couple notes about Flex. There are a couple different procedures that are involved. One is a master agreement or contract that is signed by the parent and the student and the school that outlines the student's course of study. And one option that a student can do at Flex is take 1 class at a time. Now, the one caveat I want to throw out there is that students who take 1 class at a time who are in Flex, but then potentially want to transition back into high school, that can be a challenge because they're transitioning back into 6 courses, maybe mid-semester. So for students that are really committed to Flex and are going to be there for a whole semester, a whole year, they have that option of taking 1 class at a time. Typically, it takes about 3 weeks, and they gain a lot of benefit from that, being able to focus on one thing at a time. But if a student is potentially going to transition back mid-semester due to considerations about COVID, we encourage Flex students to make a little bit of progress on all 6 of their courses so they can transition back in. So the way to enroll in Flex is to reach out to your child's counselor in August when the counselors return, and we have a great set of assistant principals at all the sites who are really experienced at managing enrollments and programming for Flex. So we invite you to consider that option as well. Next slide. Homeschooling is our third option. It is the independent study option for our TK through 5 students as well, and it's another option for our middle school students. Many of our homestead students transition to El Camino seamlessly. That's a pretty well-worn path in Ventura Unified. So if you were a middle school student last year in homeschooling, definitely invite you to consider El Camino. Lots of success students enjoy in that transition. But our principal, Susan Martinez of this program, she's also principal of the new Lemon Grove K-8. Invite you to reach out to her. So this program is kind of modeled after a more traditional homeschooling program where students have a lot of curricular options, all the adopted curriculum from board adopted curriculum that the district employs, but also platform flexibility, online versus traditional paper pencil. So there's a lot of really good flexibility for homeschooling. So once again, homeschooling is our independent study program option for our younger students, our elementary students. It's an option for middle school. We also have Flex for middle school. We also have Flex for high school, and we have El Camino for high school. So we're really pleased to have a portfolio of options to offer parents who are interested in continuing with independent study. As Dr. Rice mentioned, and I believe Dr. Castro did as well, we are a one-to-one district now. So we're really excited that one of the silver linings, as Dr. Rice said about COVID, and I'm going to jump down to the bottom of the slide. I think it's really important to remind parents that in the same way where students in the past all had textbooks, they weren't all in textbooks all day long, every day. There were activities, there were interactions, small groups. And just because we are now a one-to-one district does not mean that students will be on their devices all day long at school. And I'll talk a little bit more about how those devices will be used a little bit later in the next slide when I talk about how Canvas and Seesaw and Google Classroom are going to be used. But as a one-to-one district, every student will be assigned a device. In the same way that students are assigned textbooks at the secondary level, every student will have a device. Now at the TK through 3 levels, TK through 1 will have iPads, grades 2 and 3 will have Chromebooks, but they won't take them home. They will be left in the classroom, and whenever they're needed for instructional purposes, teachers will direct students to get them, and off they go. For grades 4 through 12, every student will be issued a Chromebook that they will take to and from school. And we'll talk again a little bit about how those can be used at home. But in terms of security, I know it's always a very important, legitimate concern for parents. They're still managed by the district. All of our securities and protection measures are in place, but they just can be used on home Wi-Fi. So as with anything technology, we really encourage parents to take an active role in helping build digital citizens in our students and making good decisions online. But again, it's really important to note that our firewalls, our protections are in place when students bring those devices home. Qualifying families also in need of Wi-Fi, and this is something Dr. Rice mentioned too. We're working on broadband for everyone, but we do have existing programs that families can reach out to the call center for VSD for support to get free Wi-Fi at home. And again, I just want to reiterate that just because now Ventura Unified is in a one-to-one environment, that doesn't mean that students will be on screens all day long. They're going to be used instructionally, for assessments, for interactions, for virtual labs, those kinds of things, but not necessarily for 8 hours a day of work. We'll go to the next slide, Maria.
Before we move on, Dr. Bayless, one quick question that I know always comes up. Students should leave their personal devices at home and only bring the school-issued Chromebook to campus, correct?
That's a great point. Yes, thank you for that reminder. And the reason is personal devices don't work on school Wi-Fi. And it can be more of a hassle than it's not. And also then there are not the protections involved. So we don't allow personal devices on campus for the sake of security, for ease of management, and just also for consistency's sake. So thank you for reminding me of that. Okay. Everyone is familiar with Canvas. For those of you parents with younger folks, you're familiar with Seesaw as well. And many of you We're also experienced in Google Classroom. So these are learning management systems, just a fancy word for platforms, whereby the students can access digital curriculum, they can take tests, they can receive feedback from a teacher. We're going to continue to use these platforms, optional for teachers to use in all the traditional ways they were used pre-COVID. So again, that's the overriding message here, is we are returning to a pre-COVID instructional environment with some wonderful changes like one-to-one. But we are maintaining our accounts with Canvas and Seesaw, and Google Classroom was always available to us. So the primary ways those are going to be used is not so much to drive the day-to-day instruction when we were at home and Zooming only, where there just wasn't enough instructional minutes between a teacher and a student to drive that instruction, and we relied heavily on those platforms. That's not the case anymore, but those platforms are still going to be used for those three things noted in that slide. And it's a great way to give and receive feedback between teachers and students. It's a great way to issue assignments for parents to keep track of students' assignments, easier than perhaps Q. And I'll just add one final thing on this. There's been a lot of research, as I'm sure people can imagine, about some of the benefits. We know we're well aware of some of the disadvantages, but there are some benefits to digital interactions. The students live in that environment, and a lot of students nationally, not just in our district and the state, report feeling more connected to their teachers as a result of having that digital connection with them and that relationship with them. So that's going to be one benefit that we're going to try to sustain moving forward. All right, so I'm going to pass this off to Dr. Castro to talk about all the fun stuff. You have the kids having fun back in the classroom and on the playground.
Thank you, Dr. Billis, for all of that detailed information. So essentially, hopefully what you've heard is that the upcoming 21-22 school year looks a lot like what school looked like prior to COVID. There will be some ancillary holdovers. You can see some of the masks, and we're going to get into that right now. So I will go ahead and turn that over to our next presenter.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. Hi, I'm Eric Reynolds, Director of Risk Management. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about what school will look like next year in the next few slides. So currently, VUSD takes our guidance, and we constantly monitor the information from the California Department of Public Health and from the Ventura County Public Health Departments. Basically, I know that masking has been a hot topic very recently, and just in the last week, we've gotten 3 new updates. So I know it's hard to follow and kind of keep track of, but this is where we are right now. Basically, when we return, masks are going to be required for students and staff when indoors, such as like in a classroom setting, as you see on the left. Then when students and staff are outdoors, they're optional. So anyone who wants to wear a mask can, but they're not required. And then when students and staff are on buses, both the students and the bus drivers will be required to wear masks. And as the slide states at the bottom, this was the most recent guidance from California Department of Public Health, which just came out last week on July 12th. We will continue to monitor for any updates. Dr. Rice is in constant contact with all the other superintendents in Ventura County, and we're in constant contact with the Ventura County Public Health Department, including Dr. Levin. Okay, next slide, please, Marianne. Okay, kind of touched already on the first one, but we will constantly follow updates and make changes accordingly and keep you all informed. Social distancing or physical distancing was another big part of last year. The guidelines currently basically have that going away. Pre-COVID, generally speaking, within a classroom, students were about 3 feet apart. So that's probably what you can expect for next year. But it's not required as the guidelines state right now. We've been allowed to reopen our water fountains, our drinking fountains. Our hydration stations were already open, the stations that can fill water bottles, but our drinking fountains will now be open as well. Health screening, it's really important. This is one of the most important things about everybody trying to get back to as normal as we can. It's really important for everybody to self-screen. This is staff and students and parents. It's more important than ever that if you don't feel well, if you have a headache, if you have a fever, a temperature, stay home until you do feel well, or until you go to your doctor to make sure whatever you have isn't COVID. That being said, with the decrease in our rates, although it has increased a little bit the last few weeks, we will not be doing temperature taking when students come to school. It's still important that is part of everybody's self-screening before they come to school. Recess and equipment sharing, like basketballs, things like that, that was very different last year. We're very hopeful that that will be back to normal. In addition to that, we'll be practicing and teaching good hygiene. So when the kids go to recess, if they use the same basketball or soccer ball, etc., they'll be reminded to clean their hands, wash their hands, disinfect their hands when they come back from recess. Again, similar note, sharing supplies. We're hopeful that that can happen again this coming year. The guidelines have gone away a little bit from that and are really focusing more on the mask wearing and the self-screening. Quarantining will look a little bit different. It could look different in several ways, depending on if everyone is masked or not. But the guidelines, as they evolved and changed towards the end of last school year and what is currently in place, is if you are fully vaccinated, be it a staff or a student, and you are a potential close contact, in other words, within 6 feet or less for 15 minutes or more, you do not have to quarantine. You have to self-monitor for symptoms. And if you do get symptoms, you have to stay home and do those additional steps. But that is one advantage to being fully vaccinated. You're not required to quarantine if you're a potential close contact. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk a little bit about visitors and volunteers. We know how much all our volunteers do to help our sites and the kids learn. They do everything from field trips to chaperoning to helping the teachers out in the classrooms with art projects, etc. The current guidelines still say to limit non-essential visitors. We are hoping that that will change and evolve sooner rather than later. The guidelines for that are really in place for two reasons. It's so that we can do adequate contact tracing and accurate contact tracing if it's necessary, and then also so that we know who's coming to our site and we're limiting possible people who may provide some exposure to students and staff. When we are allowed to expand the use of volunteers, there may be some additional requirements in place for those volunteers. We'll be monitoring that and we'll let you know what those are. But those could be things like volunteers might have to wear a mask or those type of things. The parents can come on site this year to ask questions. Our offices are going to be open. We're going to be there to help you, to answer questions, to provide supplies, information, etc. However, if as a parent you feel most comfortable calling an office to get your question answered, that certainly is an option as well. Let's talk a little bit about VUSD facilities. Traditionally, we rent our facilities to outside community users after hours. We have reopened to renting outdoor facilities. Those mostly are our field spaces. We're currently still not open to renting indoor facilities like our gyms or auditoriums. We're hopeful that that will come sooner rather than later. If you are an organization such as a PTA, PTO, those type of things who want to have a meeting on campus, work with your site principal, but a recommendation could be to maybe have that meeting outdoors. And then we are constantly monitoring guidelines and upcoming and updated guidance for stuff like back to school nights and those type of activities. Next slide, please, Marianne. Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn this over now to Director of Facilities, Bill Alsamauer.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Good evening, everyone. Cleaning. Both day and night staff will continue to clean frequently touched areas at sites. All required items and areas will continue to be monitored via the cleaning checklist. They're posted in each building and room. So if you go into a classroom, you will see a checklist on the wall. Everything's checked off every night, every day as it's cleaned. Same in our offices, same in our restrooms. So you can constantly see what's being kept up with. An EPA approved disinfectant will be used for any positive cases or breakout. We're still utilizing the foggers that we used last year to disinfect applications as needed. Play equipment, including playgrounds, will continue to be routinely maintained. Hand hygiene will be emphasized for students before and after playground use and recess. Hand sanitizers are available in every classroom. Soap is available in all restrooms and sinks for hand washing. Next slide, please. Okay, all our systems have thermostats that have been set to run the fan cycle from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day to maximize the fresh air turnovers. We're following, all of our systems were designed following the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. So we have plenty of makeup, fresh air makeup, and we do encourage doors and windows open if teachers feel the need. Filters are being changed 3 times a year. We are now using a MERV 10 pleated filter, which is equivalent to a MERV 12 and doesn't hurt our older systems, still allows the airflow and more surface area. And keeping all our ventilation areas clear in the rooms, everything's been marked. Thermostats are labeled, as you can see in the slide, to make sure everything is constantly running. We have ribbons on our fans, so you can see the registers. You'll see small ribbons moving to show the units are running. That gives us notice right away. If something is not working, we get right out and fix it. Okay, so from here, I'm going to hand it over to Kara Munoz, who's our Director of Child Nutrition. Next slide, please.
Thank you. Food and Nutrition Services is excited to announce that meals are free again this next school year for each student. Each student is welcome to 1 breakfast and 1 lunch at no charge. Because the meals are free and reduced meal applications are not available, but we will encourage families to fill out the alternate income survey that the district will be providing. Information will come soon in regards to access of meals for students that are on independent studies or those who may be quarantined. So keep a lookout for that information. And if you have any questions regarding food and nutrition services, feel free to call us at the district office at extension 1306. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Ari Weiberg, the Director of Transportation.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So let's talk a little bit about busing. So everybody wants to know who or how do we determine who can ride a bus? So there's a few ways to do that. So our number 1 priority are students that have transportation listed on their IEPs, and those are usually in the special ed program. So that is our federally mandated programs that we do have to provide transportation for. After that, the district policy is that students that live outside of the walking boundary to their home school. So down below there, you can see if they're in kindergarten through 3rd grade, if they live further than 3/4 of a mile from their home school, they would qualify for transportation. 4th and 5th grade, if they live farther than 1 mile. 6th through 8th grade, if they live farther than 2 miles. And high school, 9th through 12th grade, is farther than 3 miles. So we would base eligibility for transportation on that. For the most part, if you are attending a different school than your home school or school of choice, or if you live outside of our district boundaries, you do not qualify for transportation. We do get a lot of phone calls on that. And something new this year that's coming out is the week or 2 weeks before school starts, we will be sending out a letter in the mail to all students that do qualify. And in that letter, it will have where their bus stop is, the time for the bus stop. And we are also including a bus card that the student will scan on and off the bus as they get on the bus. And you'll know if you do qualify or if you have been signed up for transportation based on that letter. So look for that letter a little before school starts. So we will do our best to route everybody who qualifies. And like I said before, special education routes do take priority. The students may be seated 2 to 3 per seat on the bus. And as was mentioned before, current guidelines are requiring masks to be worn by the students and staff at all times while on the bus. And we will perform regular cleaning on the buses. And if needed, if there's a COVID case that we determine was on the bus, we will do a little bit deeper disinfections on there. That's what I have for transportation, so I will turn that over to Dr. Castro.
Before we do that, if you could just please clarify again about the school of choice, because there's some here that have foothill or mound students. Just do any school of choice people qualify for the bus?
Yes, so the data, people going to data do qualify. There's an exception for that. Also for the Anacapa TWI children and the foothill. Mound does not.
Thank you so much. And we'll move it on to Dr. Castro.
Thank you. And I will be passing the baton to our very capable Executive Director of Special Education, Marcus Konitz.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are very pleased to announce that all special education instruction and services will be provided in school, in person during the school day, and that distance learning plans will no longer be needed. We've heard tonight about the independent study and homeschooling options that the district is offering, but please keep in mind that as part of our commitment to our families, we must ensure that all of each child's special education services and supports are provided correctly. Families of students with disabilities who may be considering an independent study or homeschool option should reach out to their principal and request an IEP meeting to discuss this option. With respect to face coverings, we recognize that some students with special needs may require additional support in this area. VUSD has a multi-tiered and progressive support system in place to ensure that all students can participate in their school experience. And as many of our families have reported how pleasant it has been to have a virtual meeting option for IEP meetings, we will be continuing to offer this option as well as the traditional in-person format of IEP meetings. And with that, I will turn it back to Dr. Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Konitz, and I will pass the baton again to Dr. Bayless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Konitz, Dr. Castro. I know on the forefront of many parents' minds are the question of, will my child be prepared for the next grade level? Will they be prepared for the next course and sequence, given the struggles that many of our students had? Now, while many of our students experienced some success last year in distance learning, we know that the majority of our students struggled. So we have a variety of initiatives to try to fill in those learning gaps, both short and long term. And so I'm happy to speak to a few of those. First and foremost, I'll jump to the middle of the slide there. We're very excited that we were able to provide an extended summer session this year under the direction of Chief Innovation Officer, Dr. Rini Rickard. So we had a June Vusd session. We're currently in the third week of our 4 weeks of July, and we'll have some opportunities in August as well. So that's one of the things that we think is going to be really important. We've had great participation, excellent enrollment in that summer session. If your child is not involved in that, we have summer sessions for every level this year. And this is only the second year that we've been able to do that. We are planning on several things next year. First and foremost, we are hiring additional support, intervention support for elementary schools. You're going to see more of those intervention support teachers at the elementary schools. We're going to continue with a full-time credit recovery teacher at Buena and Ventura High School. We had those in the spring to help our students who had fallen behind and become credit deficient. So we're very pleased to be able to have those stationed at our 2 comprehensive high schools, and we'll have options for El Camino and Foothill as well. We're going to continue with small group supports after school, and we're going to expand our after school tutoring services. We were engaged in a pilot with a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week online tutoring service for special populations last year, and that will continue and perhaps expand. And we're going to engage in some different structures to help our teachers and our administrators and counselors monitor, and our parents monitor struggling students. So we'll have struggling student advisory and monitoring groups where volunteering teachers will have a caseload of students that they monitor closely and meet with and develop a relationship with, kind of in a homeroom type environment. And we will also continue with and expand after school extended library hours. And this is just a short list to fit on one slide, but we're well aware of the short and long-term gaps that students may have experienced as a result of COVID. So we're really excited to continue to look at mitigating those gaps. Next slide. I'm going to pass it off to our Director of Student Support Services, Cynthia Frutos.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're really excited in Student Support Services to explain to you what are the detailed supports that our district has worked hard for ensuring student success. So with that, I'm going to have my Assistant Director, Cheryl Burns, go through each of the wonderful things that we're providing to your students, all of our students, for these supports in place. Cheryl, are you on call?
I am, thank you. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for coming. We have hired 3 additional counselors for elementary schools, and we're in the process of hiring school social workers. The second step social emotional learning curriculum is in place for TK through 8 classrooms for use by classroom teachers and by counselors. In addition, a social emotional learning community of practice will meet regularly during the school year to provide ongoing staff development. All teachers, counselors, and admin have been trained in trauma-informed practices. This is intentional training that prepares the adults in the school to recognize and respond to students that have been impacted by traumatic stress. We have augmented behavior support and intervention teams in place to help with early elementary students experiencing behavior issues that interfere with learning. Mental health resources have been posted on our website and will be provided to students, staff, and families regularly. An SEL and mental health speaker series for students, staff, and parents will be available throughout the next 2 school years to help our community grow together with skills that can be used at school and at home. Our Student Assistance Program, or SAP, is ready to help students and families, and our brand new Wellness Center is open at Bueno High School as well. We have developed many community partnerships to assist students and families, such as Care Solis, Logrando Bienestar, VCBH, etc. Care Solis is a new partnership that will provide students and families and staff with help finding appropriate community supports. It will assist families with and without insurance. Our mental health committee, comprised of district staff and community health providers, meets regularly to share resources and best practices, and a mental health fair with our community partners is planned as well. Okay, so those are just a few of the things that we have planned for the students and for our community. And Dr. Bayless, I'll send it back to you.
And before we go there, if you could just clarify one more time, will there be social emotional learning Wednesdays this year?
There will not.
Thank you. Dr. Bayless, you're next.
All right, thank you. It is time to talk about athletics. And obviously we're really pleased that we're talking about a full return to athletics right now in the summer, as opposed to this time last year where everything was in question. So we are thrilled. If that's enough of a word to say to describe our feelings about our return to athletics, both at for all our levels, elementary, middle, and CIF high school sports. We were not able to return middle and elementary athletics last year, but again, we're pleased to be able to return all levels of athletics. So just want to remind everybody that the eligibility for participation in athletics is going to occur in the same way it did pre-COVID. So for those of you who are new for CIF athletics, which occurs at the high school, there are certain eligibility requirements that we are required to fulfill for all of our students in order to participate and compete in CIF. Students have to have a minimum of a 2.0 GPO at the most recent quarterly marking period. So that means for fall sports, for football, for all the fall sports, students have to have had a 2.0 at the semester 2. Now, for those students that are in summer school, those summer school grades, if their credit recovery can be added and help a student's eligibility GPA from semester 2 of last year improve. There's also second little known eligibility requirement that says they also have to be passing a minimum of 4 classes. So it's not just the GPA, they also have to be passing 4 classes minimum. So that's really important. And that eligibility is determined quarterly throughout the year. And there's one probationary period that is allowed by CAF, and a probationary period, the duration of which is a quarter. And so if a student is an incoming freshman that does not have a 2.0, but is passing their 4 classes, is passing 4 of their 6 classes, they can use their probationary period. So it's really important. A probationary period does not apply to that minimum of 4 class rule. It only applies to the GPA. Also, students have to pass a physical. So again, that is the case pre-COVID. That continues to be the case in this coming year. So COVID testing of athletes, if many of you recall, when we initially returned back to athletics, is not going to be required. And by the way, I want to backtrack a little bit. For middle school, that GPA requirement holds, even though technically middle schools are not CIF competitions. And also middle school students have to pass a physical as well. So there's a lot of similarities between the eligibility between middle and high school. I'll just bump over to actually stay on the slide. These 3 individuals are going to be your best avenues to getting all your questions answered. These are our athletic directors at our comprehensive high school where our sports are offered. Sean Stropel at Buena High School, Jamal Brown at Foothill, and David Hess at Ventura. And for elementary and middle school athletics, the principals will know best. So please reach out to them come August when they return, and some of those plans for restarting athletics at those levels take shape. Marianne, I fear I missed something, and I know that you'll probably know what it is.
I think we're good.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right, on to the next slide. Similar to the excitement that we have about restarting athletics, we're very, very pleased to be able to talk about a return to normal, a very close return to normal for PE, performing arts, and field trips. Now, as Director of Risk Management, Eric Reynolds said earlier, some of the field trips might look and feel a little different based on some of the volunteer guidance that's coming out. Mask usage still may be required at various locations or on buses, et cetera, but we weren't able to have any field trips last spring, and we're excited to start to bring those back. Performing arts, as you know, was a struggle to restart last year, but we're so excited that we were in concerts and listening to performances and watching performances by the end of the year. And we are optimistic that there's going to be a full return to singing and music. But right now, we will be returning to performing arts as it was at the end of last year, with some of the indoor requirements for masks, et cetera. And PE, I know there's a lot of questions about PE, given that that was very challenging, given that we were Zooming and we couldn't Zoom outdoor PE, but all PE, dressing out, changing into PE attire, that will all be returned to pre-COVID normal. But masks for gym activities will still be required as it's indoors, but the vast majority of our PE activities are outdoors. So we're excited that that's going to look normal. This year is a critical year for us to welcome students back to what we hope is going to be as normal, as pre-COVID-esque a year as possible. And one of our primary levers that we're employing for that is we have, with special state grant money, we have hired a part-time ASB activities TOSA for secondary to support all of our secondary schools with really high quality welcome back events to connect students back to school, proms, dances, et cetera. All those things are going to return to near normal. And I say near because we might have to rely more heavily on outdoor venues. But in my opinion, the outdoor venues are the best anyway for the dances. And we are really fortunate here in Ventura County to have a wealth of outdoor venues for those kinds of things. So our newly appointed ASB TOSA, who's currently the ASB director, at Foothill Technology High School, Melanie Lindsay, is already working with all of our ASB directors to design fantastic welcome back, make school fun again, connect back with your peers and your teachers kinds of events. So we're gonna blow it up when students get back in the fall. We're looking forward to that. On to the next slide. All right, I'm going to pass this one off, I believe, to Cynthia Frutos.
Thank you, Greg. Well, now we're wondering, how do you enroll for the 2021-22 school year? That's quite easy. As it was explained earlier, if you're a returning student, you were enrolled last school year, that's okay. You're automatically enrolled for this new school year. All the office managers and the school sites have worked really hard to make sure that your information has been rolled up to the next school year. If, however, you disenrolled from Ventura Unified this school year and you attended another school not within the Ventura Unified District, we're encouraging you to contact your school site that you last attended to re-enroll. So remember that school sites are out right now. Office managers should be returning August 1st. So I would ask that you contact our department directly, Student Support Services, if you have any questions. But in order to get you re-enrolled at that school that you last attended, please contact that school site. For new students, if you're brand new to Ventura Unified School District, whether you're TK or kinder or perhaps in an upper grade level, we have an online pre-enrollment application, and that link can be found on the Ventura Unified School District's website. So what you do need to know is that if you are coming from out of district, if you're not from Ventura Unified, you're coming from Oxnard perhaps, or Ojai or Santa Paula, contact your boundary school district in order to be released. But if you are in Ventura Unified, you would just go ahead and proceed with utilizing the online enrollment application. Again, schools will be reopened in August to get more information from your office managers and school sites, specifically if you have questions regarding programs. Again, though, we encourage you to contact our Department of Student Support Services, and we'll help you with whatever questions that we have until they return in August. There is a website there. Marianne, I'm not sure if you can hover over that link. I had embedded it earlier. Above that one that says venturausd.org for registration. Let's see if this works. That's fine. It's not going to work. What I was trying to do is just take you to the link. Again, you can go to the Ventura Unified School District website, and you will find that link that says register here, enroll here. Marie-Ann and her team did a great job in making sure that it's highlighted and it's easily identifiable. I talked about it just briefly, but if you are transferring from another district, that process does start with your boundary district. You need to complete an inter-district application. Once your district releases you from their boundary, then you would contact our department, Student Support Services, to begin the process of transferring your child to the Ventura Unified School District. Again, these are only for students who do not reside in the Ventura Unified boundary. You can contact us at 641-5000, extension 1370. If you're interested in trying to find out, if you're new to Ventura and you'd like to find out what are your boundary schools for elementary, middle, or high school, again, on our district website, there's something called My School Locator, and we underline that there. On our district website, you click on that link, you type in your address, and it'll give you your elementary, your middle, and your high school boundary schools. However, if you decide that you're living in Ventura, you'd like to choose another school other than your boundary, you would contact your boundary school so that you can apply for a transfer to one of our other schools within Ventura. So we've got lots of options for you all, and we would love to have you in Ventura Unified registered as soon as possible. If you have any further questions, give us a call in Student Support Services, and we look forward to seeing you. And I will hand that back over to Marianne. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder before I go on to one of the last things that we will talk about before we take a few questions. This is the Ventura Unified School District. We are getting some questions related to the county itself, so I know it's a bit confusing. We are the Ventura Unified School District for the City of Ventura's residents. There is the Ventura County Office of Education, and that is the umbrella that oversees the rest of the districts within the county of Ventura. So that's the Ventura County Office of Education, in case you would like to reach out to them. In the meantime, just really quickly, how we will communicate with you now that you are going to be becoming a parent, or for those parents that have been hearing from me all last year, thank you for your patience. I wanted to let you all know we are redoing our websites. all the school and the district websites will be redone this year. We are hoping for a January 2022 launch. Please bear with us. I would like to thank so much Martin Foley, who is on this call with us today. He's our digital communications specialist. He is the one person currently working on all 31 websites. And so thank you, Martin, for your hard work on that. But we hope to make that your central hub for information so that you really can find everything that you need there. Everything from calendars to lunch menus to news about what's going on, bell schedules, etc. So we're working really hard on that. You also know that we have a parent portal, and that portal is where you can find everything from grades to attendance to library book status to your cafeteria balance, which you won't really need this year since we're offering free meals to all of our students, and much more. That is also the place where you will update your contact information. So if your contact information changes, please make sure you update that in the parent portal in Q Parent Connection. Now we also have Parent Square. I know, a little confusing, but Parent Square is our communications platform where we're able to text you, email you, phone you, send pigeons out if needed, apparently at times. So we will send all of our communications out to you through Parent Square. That is the secondary place in addition to websites where you will hear from us. We also have our district social media platforms. Many of you have probably heard about this particular webinar tonight on our Facebook, our Twitter, and then tonight we are recording this and we will upload our presentation to our YouTube site, and we have a lot of other videos there for you as well. Schools will communicate in different ways throughout the year, as do our teachers. And so as we launch our websites, more and more of our teachers will have their teacher websites. We are launching Parent Square more fully so that our teachers are being trained on how to use it. But contact your school and your teacher to find out exactly how they are going to communicate with you. And finally, don't forget, some of our teachers will be using Canvas and other platforms, so your students may be communicated to there. Moving on, we are now at a question and answer point. I first want to thank all of our presenters tonight. I'm going to stop sharing here. All of you have worked so hard over the past year. We could not have done it without you. I could have not done tonight without you. You all, if I won the lottery, would be sent on a multi-week paid vacation because you have worked so hard. But I now won the lottery, so you're out of luck. I'll try again next week. So we do have some questions that have been asked. And one of the first questions is, I'm new to Ventura Unified. When do I find out my student schedule, specifically and especially for those TK and kinder folks?
Maybe I'll let Gina Wallowitz answer the TK through kinder, and then we'll move up the grade levels into junior high and high school.
Yes. So oftentimes you would need to reach out to the schools directly. If you have a TK question, you can reach out to my office, Elementary Curriculum and Instruction, and we can get you that information as to which school you'll be attending for TK. But for kindergarten, reach out to your school directly. Many of the schools have a kindergarten orientation that they hold the day before school starts so that kids can get familiar with the campus. So that is best to reach out directly to the schools. Thank you.
And for middle school and high school, it's going to look similar to it has in years past for those of you veterans of the secondary level. Student schedules will be made available right before school starts if their schedule has no conflicts or problems. If there are conflicts such that a student's requested schedule and courses couldn't be constructed with the master schedule over spring and summer, when counselors get back early in August, counselors will reach out to those students and families to try to resolve those master scheduling conflicts. And so we always strive to build a master schedule that has as few conflicts as possible, but some families might receive a call from the counselor in early August. Everyone else will get their schedules at the normal time in mid-August, right before we open.
Thank you. The next question is, if an unvaccinated, well, really any student has to quarantine due to a classroom exposure, will that student have Zoom access to live classroom instruction or only work on Canvas or some other way? And will proof of vaccination be required for families for close contacts to stay in the school? Because I think there may be some question there about, okay, if it's a vaccinated student, do they have to quarantine? What type of proof do they need to show? And then if they do have to quarantine, what does learning look like? So I guess the first part goes to Mr. Reynolds.
Sure, I'll take the quarantine part. Basically, as we discussed before, if you are a close contact within 6 feet or less for 15 minutes or more, of a positive case, you will have to quarantine. If you are fully vaccinated, that quarantine requirement goes away. You don't have to quarantine. Basically, if you're a student on campus, the Health Services Department will be reaching out to the parent or the student. If that student is vaccinated, the parent will have to attest to that and give the date of the second vaccination.
Thank you. And Ms. Wolowitz or Dr. Bayless about the learning part of it.
Sure. If a student's out for any reason, out, absent, sick, they would work with the teachers to get the makeup assignment for that day and the instruction that was missed.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and add to that, one of the benefits of returning to a pre-COVID environment is that we go back to the way that we used to handle all illnesses and sicknesses. And so that's the way it was. And so again, there is not a provision for distance learning as there was during COVID.
Thank you. And we do have a question about if only one person can get communications. In the past, only one parent, we were only able to communicate with one parent. When we brought Parent Square on board during quarantine, that changed everything for us, and we can now communicate out to both sets of parents or guardians. So if you do have two parents or guardians and would like to receive that communication, please make sure that the school has that information, and then you will start being downloaded into Parent Square, and we'll make sure that we communicate with you. Let's see, lockers. That's another big question. If someone could answer, and this might be on a school by school basis. So maybe Dr. Bayless, if you can just answer if there will be access to lockers this year, or possibly Mr. Reynolds.
I will happy to say, I'll be happy to answer that. And then Mr. Reynolds can tell me if I got it right or not. So we are returning to regular locker use, but not all of our high schools and middle schools have lockers. So everything that was pre-COVID related to lockers will be once again true in the fall. Eric, how did I do?
Agreed.
Thank you. Just bear with me. Just one more point of clarification, please. So distance learning, as it was last year, from what I understand that you've said this evening, is no longer. If someone does not want to show, I apologize, I've got the windows open, I'm in Midtown, I'm trying to get a breeze, and I've got motorcycles going by, so I apologize. So this independent study for elementary is Homestead, for middle school is Homestead or Flex, and for high school is Flex or El Camino. Is that correct?
Yes, if I heard you correctly, yes.
And there is no longer concurrent teaching where there is a video camera in the classroom and you can go home and Zoom while a class is being held, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And there are no longer distance learning classes only for elementary schools, correct, Mrs. Wolowitz?
Correct, that is correct.
Okay, just want to make sure we have
A
that.
plus, 100%, well done.
Great. I'm glad I'm getting things right because, I've got to communicate it all out. And then Mr. Reynolds, at any point, is there a max? Some people are asking about a max that we may have to close a classroom, a school, or a district. Is there some sort of requirement, or do we believe that that may not happen?
Yeah, there are some numbers in our guidelines. It's something like 25% of a class or 25% of a school. Ultimately, that decision is made in collaboration with Ventura County Public Health. Anytime we get a positive case, we're required to submit that information to Ventura County Public Health. Myself and Health Services are the liaisons between Ventura Unified and Ventura County Public Health, and they contact us with follow-up information. So if we have more than one case at the same time at a specific site, they're very on top of that, and we're in constant direct communication.
Great. And another question we have is about stats related to COVID-19 exposure. So we may have some new parents that don't know, or even returning parents that don't know. We have a COVID dashboard located on our district website, and that is there and updated. During the summer, it's updated every few weeks, but during this school year, it's updated every week, usually on Friday, and we'll put the dates that does cover. So we do have a COVID dashboard there for you to be able to see the statistics for each school. And I believe we are continuing that, correct, Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. And food and nutrition, if you could just explain, or possibly Mrs. Wolowitz or Dr. Bayless, about if they're going to be eating in a cafeteria, or are we going to encourage eating outside? What does that look like this year?
It will depend on the site and the nature of the day. Like if it's a rainy day at an elementary site, they may be eating inside the cafeteria, but we did purchase additional outside furniture. And so we will be encouraging students to eat outside whenever possible, but cafeterias may be used.
And that goes for a secondary as well, yes.
Great. And are we going to be increasing capacity at Homestead, since that will be one of the that is the only option for our elementary students?
I can jump in and just share for everybody. We staff our schools based on student demand. So if the student demand is there, they will get more staffing. The same goes for the elementary sites.
Thank you. And Dr. Bayless, I know we already talked about Flex, but if someone is interested, we know if they're interested in Homestead, they reach out to Susan Martinez, who's the principal there. If they're interested in Flex, who do they reach out to?
They can reach out to their high school or middle school counselor. So admittedly, the high school counselors, again, since we've had that program for a year and a half, all of our high school counselors are well versed in Flex, and they can answer any and all questions and enroll students in that. At the middle school, I'm going to continue to work with middle school counselors and principals to help get them up to speed on what Flex is. But the first place to start would be the counselors when they return in August.
And can they jump back into the regular classroom if they are doing Flex, say in the middle of the semester? If there's some reason why they need to be at home right now, maybe they're 11 and they get vaccinated a few months in, so they're going to do Flex in the meantime. Can they jump back in the classroom at that time, or do we prefer that they do that at the semester?
That's a great question. So we're required to transition students back into in-person learning if they request it within a certain amount of time. It's relatively short. However, as I tried to mention in my earlier comments, students that go on Flex have the option of taking one course at a time. So instead of taking 4 courses or 5 courses, they do it one at a time. And so if a parent or student thinks they might transition back to in-person at any point in the middle of a term, in the middle of a semester, we strongly encourage them to not do the one course at a time option, because then you're midway through the year and you haven't even started your math course, and that's very challenging. So we definitely invite parents to stay for a full term based on their plans, their needs, but we know that things come up. So if they think there's going to be some temporary placement, please keep that in mind.
Thank you. And one more question about Flex. Say a student is currently at a school of choice, they choose to do Flex for this year. Will they be able to go back to their school of choice next year?
Yes, in secondary. So all of our secondary programs that have Flex, they're housed at that school. So the student does not change enrollment to a different school. Great question.
And Mr. Reynolds, will we be checking vaccine cards as of today? The answer to that?
Thanks, Marianne. I was just typing the answer to that. So there's a couple of different scenarios. So I touched on a couple minutes ago. If it's a student scenario, health services will be in contact with the parents. The parents will need to self-attest regarding vaccination status for the student, including the last vaccination date. We are having employees self-attest. There are allowances currently for employees who are fully vaccinated to not be required to wear a mask indoors at non-school sites. However, they have to self-attest before that can happen. However, at school sites, as we talked about earlier, the current guidance is to wear face coverings for both students and staff indoors.
Thank you. Ms. Muniz, we have 2 questions for you. 1, can students bring lunch from home, and is there any restriction on them bringing those reusable containers from home? And 2, the calendar, will there be a lunch calendar going on this year?
Thank you. I have heard nothing about meals coming from home. That's fine. We have no authority over the food that comes from home. And the calendar for the menus is available online on the district website under business services, under food and nutrition. And we'll have updated menus and nutritionals for everyone there.
Thank you. I think that is it, Dr. Rice. I think we've been able to get through all of our questions at this point. Someone is asking, do students currently have to be vaccinated? And the answer to that is no, we are not requiring vaccination at this time because California Department of Public Health Ventura County Public Health have not required that. Please correct me if I'm wrong. All right, seeing as there are no corrections, then I am going to go ahead and move this back over to Dr. Rice to close us out for the evening.
Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate all of your good work facilitating this evening. Appreciate everyone's questions. Man, I almost lost track there. I was typing as fast as I could and with my stubby little fingers, and I know many of you were as well. So thank you for that. Parents, if we missed any of your questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll do our best to get your questions answered just as soon as possible. Are things perfect? No. Are they much better? Yeah. We're really excited about having in-person instruction, having in-person clubs, organizations, extracurricular, co-curriculars, and we're looking forward to having the restrictions loosen up as well as soon as we get through this next wave of the Delta variant that appears to be taking over in unvaccinated areas. And Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but in my conversations with VCPH and the other superintendents, it seems like Ventura County is in a pretty good place and that our vaccination rate and our rates seem to be remaining very low, or very low on the infection rates, very high on the vaccination rates.
Yeah, I agree, Dr. Rice. I think that's accurate.
Okay, so we're going to keep making progress. That's the bottom line. We're going to keep making progress to get our kids back and fully involved in their schools. And we are super happy to have you. Also, I just have one last thing. There were some questions in the chat about how to register for our district and interest in different programs. Maybe Ms. Frutos, if you could address one more time where we may have openings, how they can get registered, if they know families from other areas that are interested in coming to Ventura Unified, returning to Ventura Unified, we're happy to have them. We'd love to serve your kids, your neighbors' kids, and your friends' kids. So Cynthia, how can they sign up for the great things that we're going to be doing this next year?
Absolutely, Dr. Rice. So those of you that are returning back to us, we're welcoming you back. Please go to the pre-online enrollment. If you're brand new to the district, you will go to pre-online. If you're returning after being out, contact Student Support Services and we will walk you through that process. Schools are coming back. The offices are coming back to provide services to you around August, the first week of August. That's when office managers and principals should be returning. So if you have specific questions in regards to programs, we encourage you to speak with the sites themselves. However, our Student Support Services department is here to serve you and answer any of your questions. But the most important piece to enroll is to contact our department and then go, if you're from another district, you need to be released first. So again, we want to encourage all of you that are new to Ventura Unified tonight. If you're not normally with Ventura Unified, you must be released from your existing district, and that's called an inter-district application. You would fill that out and then you would turn that into our department in Student Support Services. We're located on Stanley Avenue, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. And our number is 644-5000 extension 1378. Or you can email us. If you see my name here, you can email us directly as well, Cynthia Frutos. We're here to serve you. So it's through any venue that we will communicate with you to get your child enrolled. Please don't be discouraged. If there's a reason why you can't get online enrollment, contact us directly. We will help you with that process.
One small correction, our extension is 1370.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Frutos. Appreciate it, and very much appreciate everyone's time this evening. Thank you for being here, and Ms. Quiros, I'll turn back over to you to close it out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rice. Thank you again to everyone who has participated this evening. We did have the hope we were able to answer all the questions. I believe we did. There are no more left. So again, thank you so much. We have recorded this. We will offer this on our YouTube page, hopefully by 5 p.m. tomorrow. I just have to wait for it to download and we'll get that out to you. Again, we will be in touch with you if any of this changes. We will be providing you with written guidelines, very similar to what we've talked about today, just before school begins so that you can see if there are any updates But again, have a wonderful summer and we can't wait to see you in the fall. Take care.